Hello and welcome to Legally Speaking with me, Tarun Nangia. Today we are going to talk about dispute resolution. You speak to any well-to-do businessman in this country, even small-scale industrialists. The oft-repeated questions that they will ask is who to appoint as an arbitrator, how an arbitrator should be appointed. And when we ask them why you want to go in for arbitration, they will say, see, Tarun, this is a much faster way for dispute resolution. The court system in India is overburdened. And had it not been for arbitration, India would be suffering a lot. Arbitration is hand-holding the courts today to solve commercial disputes. And in a sense has come as a breather for our judiciary. And we are also in a sense helped because a lot of our former judges have taken up this mantle and they are contributing to the dispute resolution process by taking up these arbitrations. And in a time-bound manner, you are getting your dispute resolved. I may like to point out, recently many important functionaries of the government have also pointed out that if you want that investments from Europe, the Western countries, and even other countries should flow into India, they will flow when there is certainty for dispute resolution. Of course, there will be problems. Nobody denies that there will be problems. But if dispute resolution happens in a time-bound manner, you can achieve growth. So in a sense, the arbitration process in my country, which is India, can contribute to economic growth of this country. And that is why we're going to discuss this topic today. I have with me a very eminent panel. I have with me Justice Madan Lokur. I have with me Senior Advocate K.V. Vishwanathan. I have with me Advocate Shashank Garg. As you all would all know, Justice Madan Lokur was heading the E-Court Committee just before, as you said, the coronavirus epidemic broke out a couple of years ago. He headed it. And I think we could go through these times and could switch to online because I think some stellar work was done during Sir's time. So we would like to both congratulate him and also thank him that this switchover could take place. And now others are taking it forward. Thank you, sir, for what you did during your time, be it the Allahabad High Court or other courts. Your contribution helped us go into the digital era and it was aided by Corona. I have with me Senior Advocate K.V. Vishwanathan, who is a renowned name in the field of law. Shashank Garg, independent counsel and a well-known name in Delhi, practice in the Supreme Court and the Delhi High Court and takes up a lot of arbitrations also. Welcome, Shashank. So we will begin our show with the first question to Justice Lokur. Sir, who can be an arbitrator in India? This is from a layman, businessman, common person's view. Who can be an arbitrator in this country?
Well, you see, anybody can be an arbitrator, in the sense that it doesn't have to be a retired judge. There are arbitrations that I've done where you've had chief engineers or engineers as members of the arbitral tribunal. So just about anybody can be an arbitrator. Somebody, for example, in construction contracts, for example, you may need an engineer, right? If there is some other kind of a contract, you may need somebody who specializes in that. But it really doesn't matter, if you get somebody who specializes in a particular branch, so much the better. But if you don't, it doesn't matter. A layman can also be an arbitrator.
Okay. Now we'll go on to the next question, and I open the panel with this question. Sir, there are a certain segment of a population that do judge bashing when they are appointed as arbitrators. Why does this happen in our society?
Well, I'm not very clear what you mean by judge bashing of an arbitrator.
So basically, when a lot of senior judges are appointed, and there is a younger lot of people who want to be full-time arbitrators, do you think there is that element of criticism that comes into society?
Well, I haven't heard of it, but I don't know. Maybe Shashank and Vishwanathan might.
Okay. We will go to a point, sir. Now, more and more young lawyers are entering the field of arbitration. And this is not what they do after 4 p.m. This is what they do full time. Would you, as somebody who's given his life to this field, welcome this fact? Or do you feel that they should practice in the courts and then do arbitration?
No, it's perfectly all right. In fact, I welcome this. We need arbitration bar, right? Lawyers who specialize in arbitration, for example. And they can also become arbitrators. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So I'm 100% in favor of an arbitration bar, which will grow, and from that bar, you will get qualified or good arbitrators.
Okay, that's a welcome message from your end. I'll go to Senior Advocate KV Vishwanathan, sir. An arbitration bar, and you undertake arbitrations. Can you first, in a sense, in a few words, explain to us the contribution of arbitration to the dispute resolution process in this country? How it has helped the courts and helped the business community resolve disputes faster?
See, it has helped the community in a very big way. It is an alternate dispute resolution mechanism. We all know the pendency of cases in our courts. It's mind-boggling. So if two parties who enter into a commercial transaction agree that we will have an alternative mechanism outside the court process, but equally efficacious, speedier, economical in terms of the time value for money, and if the appellate hierarchy is restricted and justice is faster, why not? It has aided in a big way, whatever be the criticism of the way the act has operated. There's certainly no doubt that it has provided the business community an efficacious alternative, speedier mechanism. And it's bound to be that way going forward.
Okay, it's bound to be. Now, I'll go to Shashank. Shashank, a lot of lawyers these days in their 40s, late 30s, not only choose arbitration, but in fact, they want to do this full time. They feel they can contribute a lot more to the process of dispute resolution and to industry by this end. What has accelerated this trend? Why arbitration is picking up so fast in this country, and why a lot of businesses just say, I want to arbitrate, finish this dispute in 10, 11 months and move on? From when did this change started happening? You've been in a field for now a lot of years. Since when? 2015, 16, which year you thought that we broke out and arbitration become big in this country?
Okay, before I move on to this question, may I answer the first question that you had put to Justice Lokur about judge bashing? I have a small view on that. So what you see, what keeps happening is in any conference that you attend on arbitration, the general counsels or a lot of lawyers who appear before arbitrators frequently, they seem to have a general grievance. They always say that again and again, high courts and Supreme Court are appointing retired judges, and there is no check on the fee that they are charging. There is no check on the time that they are taking, etc., etc. And this has been going on for over a decade. But I have always asked them a question that ultimately you're the end user. You're the one who has a say in appointment. Why do you keep appointing them back? There is a reason why we require former judges to be appointed as arbitrators, as against many others. I'm not saying that others may not be good, but the sort of experience they bring in, the kind of expertise that they have, the adjudication ability that they carry, that's unparalleled. Now, if you have a technical arbitrator to do a dispute, he may be very good with the technical aspect of it, but that the award which may come out would have serious infirmities, which may ultimately, an award which is otherwise based on good market sense, may not prevail before a setting aside court because of any sort of infirmities given because of his lack of experience in adjudication. So it is very easy for people to do judge bashing, that why former judges are appointed again and again. We have very good quality former judges who are doing arbitrations, and there may be some who are not up to the mark, but it is a free market ultimately, and an end user gets to choose. So why to sorry. Yes,
Shashank, thank you for taking up that question. Shashank, thank you for taking up that question. But I'll go back to a discussion I had with Justice Mukul Mudgal and then Sumit Kachwaha. And he gave a very good answer, which I still remember. It's been about 4 years. And they said that everyone has a reputation. So it is not that arbitrations go to all retired judges. They only go to a few. It's a myth they go to all. In fact, who has a reputation for quicker dispute resolution? A lot of work will gravitate towards them. Impressions may be different. Would you agree with this analysis?
No, I completely agree. In fact, a very critical point that has been missed out is post the amendments of 2015, the pool of arbitrator is now very, very different from before. There is no unilateral appointment possible. The fee is usually being determined by Schedule 4. The disclosure is as explanatory as it can get. So with all these checks and balances, I really don't see a point where the community should unnecessarily target former judges and say that they have captured the entire business. I mean, it's again, as I said, it's a free market. Ultimately, if they are not performing, you're the end user, so you may change that fact. And that's also incorrect because I've been seeing there is a change in a lot of disputes. There is a combination of a former judge, a senior counsel, and a technical person coming into play. There are a lot of younger lawyers who are being appointed as arbitrators. So depending on what sort of a dispute it is, what sort of adjudication is required, I think market is growing and they are now very mature. So I think it's
Justice Lokur pointed out something in his first answer: the role of specialists in arbitration. Like in basmati rice disputes, there is sniff and tell arbitration. You've got specialists who will sniff the rice and say that, okay, this is this quality. And it is a big business because we export a lot of that rice and there are disputes, I must say. So you think the role of specialist has grown significantly in the past 3-4 years in this field?
See, role of specialist can never be undermined. There are disputes which can only be understood by a specialist. Sometimes they form part of the tribunal. Sometimes they're not part of the tribunal. In those cases, parties have the freedom to bring an expert on the court. In fact, the Arbitration Act also envisages the arbitral tribunal may seek an expert to come and depose. So specialists will obviously have a role in an arbitration which requires that sort of an expertise. Either it will be through making them one of the arbitrators, or it will be through parties bringing them in deposition, or by the arbitrator calling for them. So they, of course, will have a role. But the pool of specialists, sadly, I think at least the Indian jurisdiction is concerned, we do not have a huge pool of specialists. It has to increase. We need to train specialists also with the adjudication ability so that infirmity in some of the awards that we see can be avoided.
You made a very beautiful statement, adjudication ability. I'll take this up with Justice Lokur, but that's right after the break. Welcome back. Just before the break, we had Shashank Garg bringing in many aspects related to the field of arbitration. But one key point, adjudication ability. Justice Lokur, I'll ask this question. Sir, judges, by their training of being judges for 20, 15 years, they adjudicate so much that a certain finesse and ability to judge comes into being. Do you think that helps in the field when a lot of them take up arbitration? And that is a special art which is not to everybody's preserve?
Well, to a large extent, yes. But, there are a lot of other issues apart from just, deciding a dispute, a procedure, for example. Right now, if you're a judge, you have a certain procedure in a civil suit or in a criminal matter and so on. Now, so far as arbitrations are concerned, there is no standard laid down procedure. By and large, people follow the CPC. But I have come across, arbitrations. I've done arbitrations with others also, where, somebody follows some procedure, another set of arbitrators follows a different procedure, even in terms of dictating an order, or giving a number to the order, things like that. So really, there has to be some standardization in that sense. When you go to a court, you know that you have to follow the procedure under the CPC, or you have to follow the procedure under the CRPC. But what is the procedure laid down for arbitrations? So I may be very good at deciding a dispute because I'm a former judge. But that doesn't mean that, I can follow whatever procedure I want. And where does that leave lawyers? A lawyer will come before one, arbitral tribunal or before one sole arbitrator, follow another procedure, go before another one for the different procedures being followed. So Yes, the answer to your question is that by and large it does help, but procedure is equally important.
Procedure is equally important. One quick question before I go to Senior Advocate Vishwanathan. Is arbitration a courtroom in a hotel, or it's a completely different thing for the businessmen who want to arbitrate?
But an arbitration can be held anywhere. Why it doesn't necessarily have to be in a hotel room. We now have arbitration centers in many parts of the country.
So it need not be expensive. It need not.
No, it need not be expensive. No, certainly not. And now that you have this, online arbitration, there is no expense in that sense. So no, I think the way you have the arbitration is I think perhaps the least of the problems.
Least of the problems. I'll go to Senior Advocate Vishwanathan, sir. What role do you see for the Arbitration Council of India in the appointment of arbitrators?
I think the new act, amendments that came in 2019, give them a lot of functions which they ought to perform, and the most important function is the function for training people into arbitration. Things of clause D of 43D. And that's a mechanism which can be employed to groom and train arbitrators, even provide continuing education for existing arbitrators. See, this is an ocean. How much ever experienced you are, you would still want to know the latest developments. So that's an important function. But subject to what Shashank is to say, those provisions have not yet been brought into force. The 2019 Act, which enables all this, is not yet brought into force. And they will have opportunity to appoint recognized institutions, when we go into institutional arbitrations. So they have an important role. But if I can just go back to the question of judges and experts being blended, the point that Shashank made, I think that is the way to go. Because you see, a judge brings in a wealth of experience. There can be no two opinions about it, the objectivity. And there are certain ethos with a judge is trained over a period of time to follow. An expert, a technical expert, if he's on the panel, will help unravel complicated facts of business or the building industry. But after you cross that Rubicon, you still need to apply the law. So it can never be the technical expert alone, because then justice will be a casualty, because he may not be trained to interpret laws as well as a judge would do. Judge by himself may be handicapped unless he commissions an expert to advise him. But the suggestion of Shashank that a judge presiding with all the experience, the technical expert to assist him, and a commercially experienced lawyer will bring a 360-degree perspective. Otherwise, each one of them, it could just be unidimensional.
One quick question, Mr. Vishwanathan. If it's an NHAI contract, then you would need engineers. If it is a Basmati right distribution, then you need a sniff and tell expert. If it is something to do with medicine, then you will take the assistance of those experts.
No,
so much of work will go into the arbitral award, which the government will go and challenge in the higher court. So does that leave a bad distaste in the mouth of the arbitrators who are putting their heart and soul into giving a quicker dispute resolution?
No, I don't think so. That's not the way to look at it. That's a remedy available to a party. And as long as the arbitrator has done his job in accordance with the statute, error of judgment, with falling within the parameters of 34, etc., you see, that's really not the way to look at it. As long as he has done his work well and to the best of his ability, it is a job well done, and we should welcome that.
So I remember from this question what Justice Sikri told me on another show that I did with him. He made a very good anecdote. He said when he was in the Delhi High Court, he called a lot of PSU heads for a cup of coffee and told them that in bona fide cases where even that the private party is an aggrieved party, they got justice through arbitration. please don't appeal in the higher court. All PSU had said, Justice, my lord, you're right. We will not going to appeal. We are standing with the industry. And they said the moment they stepped out of the court, they forgot what they had committed.
But you know why? You know why? This happens with government also. The succeeding PSU chairman or the succeeding government will, to get at him, institute a CBI complaint and get that investigated. So they want the imprimatur of the court. So they play it safe. That's what led to policy paralysis. Every succeeding government parading the former government and the bureaucrats. Same thing, the fear of God has been put into the mind of the PSU functionaries. So they wouldn't want to settle. Why should I take it upon myself? Let it go to, a judicial body.
You made a very pertinent point, and I'll take it up in another show of mine. The fear in the mind of the PSU heads and also some government functionaries in, say, the NHA and other places. That's a good point to take up. Shashank, what is the controversy surrounding unilateral appointment of arbitrators? Is there anything that you would like to say on this issue?
So the controversy, thankfully, is now resolved. The unilateral appointment was, I would say with great respect, a nexus which was running in the country for decades together. With parties such as NBFCs, developers, etc., they used to have a clause which would give the right to appoint the sole arbitrator to them. And not only NBFCs and developers, even many PSUs and government entities had that sort of a clause. So there will be only one arbitrator, that too being appointed by one party. And in many cases, it turned out that these were pocket arbitrators who would give awards. The 600, 700 awards being given by one gentleman. On a single day, he would sign 30 to 40 awards in 31st we saw, because all he would do is just change the party name, sign, party name, sign, party name, sign. And these were the kinds of awards that were coming. So this entire unilateral appointment controversies was resolved through the judgment of TRM in the Supreme Court. And then subsequently, Justice Sindhu Malhotra's judgment of Perkins made it very, very clear that there cannot be any sort of unilateral appointment. Then even Delhi High Court and other high courts have followed it. In fact, Bombay High Court and Madras High Court, to my knowledge, have in fact set aside an award where the appointment of arbitrator was done unilaterally. So the controversy seems to have now come to an end, unless Supreme Court takes another view in some other case. So far, it has been resolved. But I must give you one small story, which will also, give you some sort of a reflection on your previous question. And this is for a PSU I used to represent. The arbitrator used to be their own engineer. And all the awards, surprisingly, would always come in the favor of the contractor. Now, I being the lawyer for the PSU, after seeing so many awards, one day decided to take it up with the vice chairman of that entity. I took one copy of the award. I told the vice chairman, I said, can you please call this gentleman who's your employee and ask him the meaning of these two lines from his award? If he can tell you the translation, or maybe in simple English what he means by this, I will not say a word. Because all these awards, unfortunately, we know how these were being put together. And this was the state of affairs that was taking place. And another case at the same sort of PSU, all the claims of the claimant were dismissed. We were the respondent. I get a letter seeking for my legal opinion whether we should file an appeal. I said, for what? You have succeeded 100%, but the mechanical, there's no application of mind. Mechanical letters are being sent asking for, permission of the lawyer or the opinion of the lawyer whether to file an appeal. So yeah, so very strange circumstances we were facing. But thankfully, I think that has been largely resolved after these set of judgments with respect to unilateral appointment.
So, of course, we are coming to the end of part 1 of our discussion on the appointment of arbitrator. But part 2 will take up many interesting questions. One being, is dissenting award considered a normal practice in this country? That I'll take up in my next show, which is the part 2 on the appointment of arbitrator. But I would like to end this show on a good note. We have a very flourishing business environment. The MSME sector in this country is very strong. They have got to recognize the importance of arbitration for quicker dispute resolution. In fact, whenever JV is these days discussed, the arbitration clause is discussed first. Where will we arbitrate? How will these things? Because everybody realizes there is a possibility of a dispute, and the arbitration clause is now becoming one of the key clauses whenever a JV is signed, even for smaller businessmen, not the thousands of crores, 300, 400, 500 crore. In a sense, even those kind of businesses have that kind of clause. On this note, I would like to end the part one. I'd like to thank Justice Lokur, Senior Advocate KV Vishwanathan, Advocate Shashank Dhar for sparing time and joining me on this very interesting topic. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you.